Welcome to the Patriots Pulse postgame show. I'm your host, John Serenitas. And as always, I'm joined by my partner, WEEI's John Lyons. And John, what a game. That might have been the best game of the year so far. From a fan standpoint and watching a game, that might have been the best Patriots game of the year.
Yeah, it had a little bit of everything, right? Great offense, great defense, but then there was some mistakes in there, a high-level opponent as well. I mean, you could make the case, John, this is their best win of the season, right?
Yep.
It's that Buffalo game on Sunday night, but you talked about this before the Bills game, and that even when they've been bad the last few years, they've played the Bills pretty tough, right? They beat them in 2023, beat them in 2021, in Buffalo in 21. So to go up there and win, that was a great win, but this is a Super Bowl contender with an MVP candidate quarterback. And again, I think the Bucs are a great team, but they're also maybe not quite as good as Philly or some of the other Detroit Super Bowl contenders out there, but still a great team with an MVP caliber quarterback in a tough environment, a team you don't know that well from your division like Buffalo. You don't play a lot. So to go down there and win, again, it wasn't perfect. There were some mistakes, but on the whole, this is a great win for them and arguably right up there with Buffalo as their best win of the season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, John. And of course, they get off to another slow start defensively, give up another opening drive score. They fall behind early 7-0, and you kind of got the sense that, okay, this could get away from them really quickly if they don't respond on offense, or at least get a stop on Tampa Bay's second possession. They do respond on offense. They tie the game on a big play, a 72-yard touchdown catch by Kyle Williams on a play-action pass. He hit him on a deep over. He scored on it. They got the stops they needed. And then Vrabel puts on a situational football masterclass there right at the end of the half. He plays his cards right. They get the touchdown pass from May to Diggs, go into the breakup 14-10. They did hit a little bit of a wall there in the second half offensively. We've seen that from them at times this season, especially the last 2 weeks. But again, when they needed to make a big play, they got the two big plays and the two big chunk runs by Travion Henderson, one to start the second half, so you get the double score to go up 21-10, and then the one that puts the game away late. Of course, they do give up the touchdown late, but it proves to be negligible as they hang on to win 28-23. But that was a big theme in today's game, John, the big plays. You and I talked a lot about this in the preseason, the speed of this draft class and how they gave them a much-needed speed element that they've lacked in recent years. We saw that today. The speed of this draft class on offense really showed up today with Williams and Henderson having big games.
Yeah, I agree. And don't forget Will Campbell setting the edge for Henderson's last touchdown run. Another great athletic play by him. And I think you mentioned the speed. It's an element that this team has not had in several years. They tried it with Tyquan Thornton and Pierre Strong. It didn't work out. And look, Kyle Williams, it's taken maybe a little bit longer than a lot of us wanted. He's come along slowly, but what you saw on that 72-yard catch and run is what he's capable. I mean, not only was it a nice route by him and a great throw by May, he created distance between himself and the defenders as he was running down the field. And then Henderson did the same thing. I mean, Henderson had the 55-yard touchdown run where he was virtually untouched too. Great blocking on that play. But then the 69-yard touchdown run that he had to break through tackles. Then he goes downfield, and as he's so fast, he's looking to the sidelines to see if the coach want him to score or not, which I'll give it. Look, I've watched a lot of football. I've coached a lot of football. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy so fast that he's so far ahead of guys. He can look over and say, hey, should I score or not? And for him to do that, I mean, that was just really impressive. But, yeah, you saw the team speed, and I would even say defensively. They had a couple bad drives defensively, but they were able to play man coverage for most of this game against the Bucs receivers and stay with them. So the team speed that they've been lacking for several years really showed up in a big way today, especially on offense.
Now, we know you have a variety of options out there to talk Patriots football after the game, but feel free to give us a look as well. Feel free to join the conversation. We are coming to you live on Facebook, X, Twitch, and our YouTube page. Again, Patriots with a 28-23 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, going into this week, John, everybody kept talking about how this is going to be a true test for the Patriots. We're going to find out just how good they are. I've been guilty of this as well. I've been throwing around the term litmus test, and Last week was a litmus test. This week was a litmus test. Buffalo was a litmus test. I think we need to stop with the tests. This is a good football team that's a legitimate contender. There are no more tests now. They belong, especially in a league this year that's wide open.
Yeah, I would agree. And look, I do think this was a test for them because you have the Buffalo road win, which was a really good win. But then you follow it up, and again, you're winning these games, but New Orleans is not a good team. And that was a good road win, but that's not a good team. Tennessee's arguably the worst team in the NFL. And then, I mean, Cleveland has a really, really good defense, but I mean, Dylan Gabriel was leading the show there on offense. They weren't a threat, and Atlanta's all over the place. So this was an opportunity for them to go on the road. And like I said, against a non-divisional opponent, because the Bills, even though they've been the top dog in the division the last 5 years, it's still a team they know well, that they've competed closely against, beaten a couple times, even when they were bad. And I would say the same thing about that win down in Miami. Yes, it's tough to win down in Miami, but as the Dolphins have shown, they're not a good team. So to go down in a difficult environment, weather-wise, with the heat right this time of year, against a really good team and win, to me, this now is kind of a threshold game where before they were a good team. But now I think we have to start thinking about them as, are they one of the better teams in the whole league? You know, maybe they're not as good as Philadelphia. Maybe they're not as good as, say, when Kansas City has everything going. Denver has some quarterback issues, but that's a really good team, top to bottom. Detroit, but they're at least kind of approaching that neighborhood now. I think they're not just a good team, and health is going to be a big part of it, obviously, because they lack depth, which you and I have talked about. But I think today was a big test for them, and even though things weren't perfect, they passed the test. I think now, again, you kind of cross that threshold where they're not just a good team. Now we might have to say, hey, are they one of the top 5 teams in the league right now? Are they in that conversation?
And again, given where the league is right now, John, I think it's a legitimate question, and I do think it's a legitimate conversation. Buffalo goes down to Miami today, loses 23-6, and lays an absolute egg. And they've been hard to figure out. You beat Kansas City last week. You come back, you go down to Miami, you lose, a team that they've dominated in recent years. I believe coming into today, they had won 6 in a row against them. And even Kansas City's another team that, in my opinion, they're hard to figure out. So while, yes, they have Patrick Mahomes and they're the Chiefs, they haven't been themselves this year. Baltimore obviously has not been what we thought they were going to be. So I think now we can start to really have this conversation. Okay, can they be the number 1 seed in the AFC potentially? You know, I've been trying to stay away from these conversations. You know that I've done my due diligence and I've done my best to say, you know what? I'm not going there yet. It's way too early. But given the fact that the Colts should have lost today, the Falcons blew that game this morning. Denver looked like absolute dog crap on Thursday night in barely beating a bad Raiders team. I think now I've come around to the idea, and Kevin Stone has talked about this a lot, and he's been kind of spearheading this bandwagon the last couple of weeks. I've come around to the idea now, John, and you kind of sort of did before me, that maybe now we need to start having the conversation that if they stay healthy, this is a team that could potentially be, at worst, a 2 seed, possibly in the mix for the 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, and you look at some of the teams around them, like now they have a 2-game lead in the division against the Bills, and the Bills have a bunch of road games coming up the rest of the year, which started today in Miami with a loss. They're also going to have to play another game in Foxborough. So you're in the driver's seat right now if you're the Patriots to win this division, which is kind of crazy considering they won 8 games combined the previous 2 years, but they're now in the driver's seat to win the division. And you look at Denver, like Denver still has to play Kansas City twice. Like those 2 teams could knock each other out. There is a lot to like about the Chargers, but I don't fully trust them yet. The Colts have been shaky. The Colts are still really good, but they've been shaky the past couple weeks. And don't forget Denver, they also have a game against Green Bay coming up in there. So the Patriots have an opportunity here because now if they win Thursday night, we're going to be talking about a 9-2 football team. Before the season, I thought they were going to go 9-8. They might have 9 wins by Thursday night when we're doing our post-game show then. And you look at the rest of their schedule, and I don't want to harp too much on the schedule, but Baltimore, I think, is a great team, and they're putting things back together. Buffalo is a really good team. But beyond that, I mean, Cincinnati has a great offense, can't stop anybody. The Jets are bad. Miami, the win today notwithstanding, is bad. The Giants are bad. Like, you have an opportunity now to win your 9th game Thursday night and get to at least 11 or 12 wins at a minimum. And with the shape of the AFC, 12 wins can get you the 1 seed and a bye. At a minimum, the 2 seed, but very well could get you the 1 seed and a bye.
By the way, mic check here. Am I sounding okay?
A little staticky, but that's okay.
Interesting. Okay. Folks, I hope you can hear me out there. It sounds like I'm coming in a little staticky. I hope it's hold on. Let me do I know we don't usually do this mid-show. How do I sound now? Better. Okay. And are you sure I don't sound staticky like as I was before? Because I'm getting text saying that my mic is too hot. I don't know what that means. So
that's all right. Little technical difficulties.
Little technical difficulties never hurt anybody.
Just here. This is like, you call a third down play and everything's open and then the quarterback gets smoked. That's kind of what this feels like, right?
But right now you said I sound better.
Yeah, you're a little stat, but we'll get through it. We'll persevere.
All right. As long as our listening and viewing audience can hear us, that's all that matters. No, I agree, John. And again, I think that with the AFC being as wide open as it is, I think that that's a big part of it. Lauren Gaudette checks in, and she's now going to play engineer for us. Both of you have microphone issues. John, you sound like you're in the gym. So much echo right now. And John, you're quiet. Okay. So I'm quiet, and John, you sound like you're in the gym, apparently. So let's try something again. How about now?
Kind of the same.
Kind of the same. This is not what we want. We've had some technical issues here the last couple of weeks, folks. Hold on. All right, how am I sounding now?
The same.
The same. Not good. We might have to do a mid-show mic check, or I'm sorry, a mid-show mic switch. So in any event, I may do that. Maybe that'll. Oh, actually, Lauren says flip the John's name. So apparently, I sound like I'm in a gym, and you sound like you're quiet. And now Lauren tells us that we're a little better. All right, let's take a look at May's Day, and obviously, Drake May has been on an MVP, playing on an MVP level, I should say, all season long. Today, he completes 16 of 31 passes, 270 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 1 interception. He had a passer rating of 89.4, so he came back to earth in regards to the passer rating. Look, it was tough sledding out there with the rain, their pass rush, trying to get in sync with the guys that he had playing with him today. I only really have one issue with him, John, and that's the interception he threw there at the end. That was vintage, ill-advised Drake May, where he's rolling to his right, and then he tries to force it, and he throws the pick. He has got to learn to play smarter in those situations. It is my one criticism of him right now. He's not doing that. If he does that, there's not much else to complain about. That's really the only issue I have with the way he played today.
Yeah, I think on the whole, Drake May had a really good day, but I also think your point about the interception is a good one, right? Ill-advised throw, ill-advised decision, and it gets picked off. And that was a point in the game where if let's just say in that drive you end up with a field goal, then you're at 24 points, it's 24-16, and sure, you'd have the ball back after, and I know they eventually scored on Henderson's long run, but even if you get a field goal there, obviously you get a touchdown, the game might have been over or close to it then. Instead, you give the Bucs a little bit extra life. Credit to the Patriots defense for forcing that turnover on downs. They did a great job on that drive, and that was the story, too, with the Patriots defense, right? They had a couple bad drives in this game early on, that touchdown drive right off the top of the game. Then there was that 92-yard touchdown drive when the Patriots are up 21-10. They go 3-and-out, kind of go really conservative on offense. They go 3-and-out, then they give up the 92-yard touchdown drive. And then, of course, that final touchdown drive, the Patriots defense allowed. So they had some really good moments defensively, and then they had a few bad drives mixed in. And that was kind of the story of the offense as well. They had not just the Williams catch and the 2 Hendersons run, but they had moments in this game where they moved the ball really well up and down the field. That drive at the end of the first half was 7 minutes and 16 seconds, and you got a touchdown out of it. That was a great drive. And then to come out to start the second half, you get a big play touchdown, 55-yard run, but then it's punt, turnover on downs, punt, interception, right? So that was kind of the story of the day with both units, is there was some really, really good highs and some really, really low lows. And that's kind of what kept this game, honestly, kind of as close as it was.
All right, I made a mic switch. What do I sound like now?
The same.
Oh, damn it. All right. Well, look, I mean, I only have one other microphone I can go to here. So we do have plenty of microphones here at New England Football Journal, but I don't want to keep doing mic changes during the show. No, listen, and again, I think the only reason I say that it's frustrating, John, is because it's the one thing he does that is problematic, and it's something that it can rear its ugly head down the road, right? But we all know how good he is when he takes care of the football. We all know how good they've been when he takes care of the football. So, and I don't think I'm nitpicking, because if he throws that interception in the middle of the field, you're like, all right, that was a dumb decision. He forced it. They get the ball around the 30-35. You could live with it. But when you throw it in the red zone like that, where you could have come away with a field goal at least, that's the other part of that. That's the part of it that I think ultimately sticks with me.
Yeah, it took points off the board, right? At a minimum,
3
points.
In a close game, nonetheless.
In a close game on the road, right? You take points off the board with a turnover, you can't have it, right? Like, and I know it sounds obvious, but when you look long term, because as I said earlier in the show, I think you're at the point where we can start talking about this Patriots team as one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the NFL. And I know they don't have a ton of depth, and that's a concern. And if they have injuries, our calculus will change. But if you think, well, all right, what can hurt them? It's going to be turnovers by May in key situations, or if Wilson and Campbell have trouble picking up tackle and stunts, which has been an issue at times this year, or defensively, if they give up points on the first couple drives and you get behind in a playoff game, which, again, it's nice to have these conversations about the Patriots moving forward because they're good now. But that's where, again, a game like today, it's a great win, but there's still some things I think when you look forward as you continue to play better teams as your schedule goes and potentially in the playoffs, you're going to have to correct those little things.
Lauren Gaudette joins the show. As much as May made some great throws, he was running around a lot still, even with 6-man protection. And I wonder if May is looking for the big play instead of finding the third guy at times. At one point, the running backs weren't getting targets. And I think Lauren makes a valid point in that regard. Sometimes I do think that that's a little too much a part of his game, John, where we know he's an elite-level deep ball thrower, but sometimes he's looking to push it down the field too much instead of putting money in the bank and taking what the defense gives him underneath.
Yeah, there was even one check down play where Romo said, man, I wish he had hit that check down even a little bit earlier. And I think that kind of speaks to it. And it's something that he's better at than he was last year, but he's still got a little ways to go when it comes to the check down stuff. And look, he throws a 72-yard catch and run touchdown to Kyle Williams. There's that 50-yard pass to Mac Hollins late in the game as well. Of course, there was an interception after it, but still, I mean, when you can make those plays, then sometimes it's tempting to not take the check down and try to extend everything. I mean, I even think back to the Buffalo game when he had that rollout and throw down the right sideline to Diggs for the big game, which set up a score. Like, when you can make those plays, then it's tempting to not take the check down, and I get it. I think something going forward he's just going to have to do a better job at is taking those check downs. But I thought on the whole, he was really good today. Like that third down throw to Demario Douglas on their touchdown drive at the end of the first half, 3rd and 7. He's got pressure in his face, hits Demario Douglas for the gain for the first down. That was one of my favorite plays of Drake May all year. I mean, to identify that pressure, to see it coming, to take the hit, deliver an accurate throw right over the outstretched defender's hands, and hit Douglas in stride so he can catch and run for a first down, which eventually sets up a touchdown and you take the lead before halftime. Like, that was awesome. And he had a lot of plays like that today, and it's just kind of, again, flushing the turnovers and the lack of checkdowns out of his game to really get him to the next level.
I do want to get into Travion Henderson and finally having that big game we were all waiting for. Look, when they drafted him in April, we all knew he was going to give them the big play element that they've lacked, especially at the running back position in recent years, John. he finally had that breakout game that Patriot fans and media alike have been yearning for. 14 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, the bulk of those yards obviously came on the 2 long touchdown runs, the 55-yarder and the 69-yarder. But nonetheless, TreVeyon Henderson finally had that breakout game that we've been waiting for. We knew that he had it in him. We saw it last year during the college football playoff where he made a lot of big plays on Ohio State's run to a championship. We saw some of those big plays today. He is a difference maker, plain and simple. He got a little hairy there at the end when he tweaked his knee. Looks like he's going to be okay. We know that the Patriots are lacking running back depth right now. But, man, when he gets in the open field, it's over. Lights out, cue the fat lady, she's singing.
Yeah, and I mean, as I kind of mentioned with Kyle Williams earlier, creates distance among defenders in the open field, which is extremely difficult to do. I mean, just think, you see a lot of long touchdown runs. A lot of times before the end zone, you see 1 or 2 defenders kind of almost catch up. Henderson creates distance, which is really impressive to see. And look, I think this is, and I'm not telling you he's going to run for 69-yard touchdowns every week or 55-yard touchdowns every week, but this is the kind of player he can be. He might have 14 or 15 or 16 touches, and 10 of them might be for 3 yards, 2 yards, 4 yards, but then he'll have 1 or 2 which go for 25 or 30 or 40 yards and make a huge difference in the game. I mean, you look at that first touchdown run, the Patriots, to close out the first half, had that 7-minute drive. They score on 4th and goal. They go up 14-10, and they come right out, and he runs for a 55-yard touchdown. Boom, you go up 21-10. I mean, and of course, you ended up hanging on to win. And then his final touchdown, because the Bucs scored late, technically ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So 2 huge plays. So the fact that, say, the other 12 carries went for 28 yards or whatever it was, that's worth it because, again, you get the carry for 30 yards or 40 yards or 50 yards. Like, having that element out of your backfield is a huge advantage because as he gets more comfortable, like today we saw an inside run for 55 yards, an outside run for 69 yards. I think it's only a matter of time, John, before we see a screen pass for 40 yards, a rail route for 40 or 45 yards. And once he starts being able to do all that stuff, he's going to be an extremely difficult player for defenses to defend.
Lauren checks back in. I feel that the Pats have better receivers who can get some yak and create more of those big plays. I do believe on both of those big plays to Williams and Hollins. May was hit cleanly, and the hits are worrying me. Henderson breaking out will give Def. I don't know what she means there, but
give defense problems a lot, right? And
yeah. That's what I'm assuming she's saying.
Yeah, of course. It fits what we're saying, so we'll agree with her. But, I mean, if they can have that speed element in their – I mean, when was the last time they had a legit speed guy in their back? I mean, James White had some speed.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think they ever had a guy this explosive in the Belichick era.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think you can lump Kyle Williams into that too. Because, look, Kyle Williams, he's not going to catch 72-yard touchdowns every week. But if he can give you once every 2 or 3 weeks a play like this, at least at this point in his career, then all of a sudden defenses are going to have to start respecting that. I mean, Mac Hollins with a 54-yard catch today down the sideline. That's when you think of Mac Hollins, you don't always think of 50-yard catches. You might think of 20-yard catches or a big red zone target. So for them, again, with Kayshon Boutte out today, to still create explosive plays in the pass and run game was good to see because I think as they go forward, it's an element their offense has not had in previous years, and now it just makes them so much harder to defend.
Yeah, and that's what won them the game. I mean, realistically speaking, their ability to make big plays today is why they won.
Yeah, I agree 100%, right? I mean, if you look at their touchdown drives, they had the 7-minute touchdown drive at the end of the first half, which was a long drive, 14 plays. But a lot of the Kyle Williams touchdown drive was a 1-play drive, right? And the one to open the second half, 2-play drive with a 55-yard run. Then the last touchdown, right? 2-play drive with a 69-yard. Like, that's what it was. It was the explosive. If they don't get the explosive plays, they probably lose this game 23-17 or something like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. You are watching the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Saranitas. As always, I'm joined by my partner, WEEI's John Lyons. Patriots pick up an impressive 28-23 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa to improve to 8-2 on the season. It's a short turnaround, though. They return home on Thursday night to take on the New York Jets, who are suddenly hot. They've won 2 in a row after they beat the Cleveland Browns today at home. Jets are going to be coming in hot. They also have a lot of draft picks now at their disposal the next 2 years after trading Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, 2 stalwarts of their defense. But it seems like those moves really didn't matter today. They played pretty well in a win over Cleveland. So, on paper, you could look at that game and say, layup win for the Patriots, but this Jets team is finally starting to believe a little bit. They're starting to play better. I'm not so sure that I would consider it a layup win. I think that they're going to come in here and, at least for half to 3 quarters, play the Patriots tough. You mentioned Matt Collins, John. What a game he had. 6 catches, 106 yards. Made some huge catches for them at various points in the game, including the big catch down the sideline that set up the drive that unfortunately went to waste when May threw the interception. But here's the thing with him, and having been around him in camp and in the locker room and everything else, he's just a complete player, in my opinion. He's a guy that brings so much in the locker room. He's a guy that brings so much on the field. On the field, he's a terrific blocker. You can do some insert stuff with him. He's somebody who's a threat in all 3 levels of the passing game. He has been a terrific signing. And this is a guy that's kind of been a vagabond. He's bounced around the league a little bit in his 8 years in the league. I'd like to see him stick here for a while because what you've seen out of him this season, specifically today, makes him a valuable piece that you need if you want to be a contending team.
Yeah, and there's 2 things about him that I'm really impressed with. And look, the 54-yard catch is great, all that. His blocking is fantastic. And you can put him in any situation. Like that 55-yard touchdown run by Henderson early in the second half. I mean, Matt Collins and Hunter Henry had terrific blocks on that. I mean, Henderson was barely touched, and the O-line did a great job on that play, but Matt Collins was a huge part of it. And the other thing that I really like about Matt Collins is it feels like, and I know he's kind of a weirdo, no shoes, all that. The ball doesn't get to him, though. Like, it wasn't just a 54-yard catch. It was a 54-yard catch in a key moment of the game. And to me, that's what's been really impressive. Like when they need a legit play, whether it's 3rd down or 4th down, I know May likes to look to Diggs and he likes to look to Henry and of course Kayshon Bouttys when he's healthy. But Matt Collins, to me, when he's been asked to step up, when he's been asked to make a big play, he makes those big plays. I mean, even go back to, and I know it's a long time ago, but week 2 against Miami. Remember, the Patriots had lost week 1. Drake May did not look good. What did they do? They went right down the field on that first drive. Matt Collins was a big part of it, caught that touchdown pass, and felt like that kind of jump-started the Patriots offense for the whole season in week 2. He's not afraid of the moment, and I think that's really valuable on a team that has so many young guys, including the starting quarterback.
Old man William joins the show. Thanks for checking in, brother. What an amazing weekend. Wilton is 8-0 after a big 7-3 win over Greenwich on Friday night. Our Craig Bowen was there at that game. UConn 7-3 after beating Duke in a great game yesterday, 37-34. Huskies improved to 7-3, and the Pats are 8-2. You got it, brother. Great weekend for Connecticut football. Great weekend for the Patriots. Thanks for checking in, man. We appreciate you as always. John, and to your point, I don't really care what he is. He is mercurial. And I mean that in a good way. I mean, usually when you say someone's mercurial, it's in a bad way. But he's a character. He walks in as a Minuteman last week before the game, which is hilarious. Apparently that didn't go over well, supposedly, with some people in the organization. But whatever. Exactly. But the thing is, first of all, he's a refreshing personality. He gives that locker room some life. And he's a character. He's colorful. But the other part of it is, look, it's one thing to be a character and colorful. If you're not producing, though, that shtick gets old fast. But this dude has been producing week in and week out. And while it may not show on the stat sheet, it's the little things that Matt Collins does that makes him an important part of this team. He is, by definition, a glue guy. You need these guys to win in football. You need these guys to win in any sport. And I think you're seeing it. You're seeing how important he is. But I think one of the things about him that people take for granted, John, is the leadership. He brings a lot of leadership to that receiver room. And that leadership is vitally important for guys like Demario Douglas, who's clearly taken the next step this year. Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm. These guys are, Keyshawn Boutte would agree, these guys can all learn, not just from Stephon Diggs, but from Mac Hollins as well. He has done a lot for that group.
And he brings just the size element that they don't have anywhere else. He's the biggest player in their receiver room, which it's funny because in the offseason, you're like, oh, that's a red zone thing. And it has been to an extent, but it's also been a jump ball. Like today was a jump ball thing on that 54-yard pass, essentially. It's been a blocking thing as well. His size has been an asset. So it's been nice to see. And it feels like this receiver group that last year was one of the worst in the NFL. The year before was one of the worst in the NFL. I still think they're probably one legit higher-end guy short, but it's a much better receiver room than it's been the past 2 years. It feels like, the talent's better with Diggs, with Hollins, and even Kyle Williams. I know he popped today, hasn't done anything this year, but the raw talent is there. The talent's better, but it also feels like the pieces fit better together this year than they have in the last few years. And again, I'm not telling you it's an elite receiver room, but you've seen them take a huge step forward from the last couple of years, and it's been a big part of their success.
I think it is infinitely better than what they've had the last 3 years. I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, I agree.
And Diggs is a 4-time Pro Bowler. We knew that if he was healthy and bought in, that he was going to be good because he still can play at a high level. He's still somewhat in his prime, granted on the back end of it, but he's still in his prime. We knew Mac Hollins could be a nice addition. Now, remember, they signed Hollins first, and I think a lot of people for a while said, well, if that's your big free agent acquisition at wide receiver, if that's really your only acquisition at wide receiver, signing Hollins, drafting Williams, that's not going to be enough. They go on to add Diggs after the fact, and obviously he's really become a big part of the offense. But I think Kyle Williams, for me, is a guy to watch moving forward because even when you do get Keyshawn Boutte back, and hamstrings can be tricky, so the Patriots are going to have to take their time with it. But even when you do get Keyshawn Boutte back, you've got to find ways now to get Kyle Williams more involved. And I said this morning on the pregame show that I wasn't fully 100% on board with that pick only because while he gave you what you needed, a vertical threat, a speed element down the field, I wasn't sure how well he would fit in this McDaniels system because McDaniels wants guys that can make plays at all three levels. We know that. If you can get this kid to just be an intermediate to vertical threat, he doesn't have to be a perimeter screen three-step guy. Just get him to make enough plays for you, like you said, every couple of weeks as an intermediate or vertical threat. He will have done his job this year. And in the end, that's really why you brought him in. But we saw today. You hope that this is a starting off point for him in terms of being more involved in the offense. Because if he gains confidence and he continues to get more meaningful snaps, you can see what this kid can do in space and when he's got separation. I mean, he is special.
Yeah, and just one final note on Mac Hollins. The best season of his career by far was 2022 with Josh McDaniels. So he seems to fit really well in this offense. And look, the point on Kyle Williams, and we talked about this at the draft, not a lot of intermediate or short routes in his game, right? He had maybe the best release package of any receiver in the draft, and Washington State used it to throw 45-yard bombs all the time, and it worked. Like, I don't blame them, but I think that's something he's had to kind of work on because you can be the fastest guy in the league. You could be really talented, but if you're a one-trick pony, defense is going to figure it out, right? So even today, like the fact that it was a deep crossing route and he caught it and took it for a catch-and-run touchdown, I like that even more than if he had just run straight down the field for 50 yards.
Me too.
Because it's just something different, right? So now a defense can't just look at him and say, oh, he's going to run a go route and we just got to cover over the top. Now it's like, no, he outran our corner. By the way, I don't know why the Bucs had Jamel Dean off the field for that. But anyways, ran by our corner, caught it, and then ran away and gained distance for 72 yards. Like, if he can do things like that, again, once every couple weeks, because I talked about how these guys fit and how Mac Hollins has the size element that other guys don't have. Williams has a speed element that other guys don't have in that receiver room. And I think that'll be something that the more he can do that, then I think you'll start to see him get 4 or 5 targets a game. And if he can take one of them for a big play, it'll kind of change the way some of the defenses defend them.
Speaking of defense, let's talk about the defense. Obviously, again, it's frustrating. And I know I'm nitpicking here, and I tweeted out earlier that the penalties are a problem too. Just because they're playing well and they're 8-2 doesn't mean that you can't point to things and say they've got to be better at those things. they've got to be better at the penalties. That's still a problem. They come at inopportune times. Good football teams are more disciplined than that. And they're a good football team, but they've got to learn to play more disciplined. Defensively, again, it's still a problem. Opening drive scores. They continue to give up points to opposing teams on the opening drive. It hasn't really come back to hurt them yet. It could potentially. It hurt them earlier in the year. It hasn't hurt them recently. But outside of that, the one negative is they finally gave up 50-plus yards to a running back for the first time all season. But overall, they once again, when they needed to, they bucked up and they played pretty good defense for the majority of the game. That score at the end was a little disappointing. Granted, you're in prevent mode at that point. You shouldn't be giving up the score there if you're playing coverage that way. But overall, and again, I think it is important to point out, Tampa Bay is missing Mike Evans. They're missing Chris Godwin. They're missing Bucky Irving. So they're missing arguably their three biggest playmakers, not named Emeka Egbuka. But overall, this defense played pretty well, all things considered.
It's a great battle between Gonzalez and Egbuka as well. I mean, shout out to Emeka Egbuka. He's a rookie. He looks like a legitimately great receiver already. That was a fun battle between him and Christian Gonzalez. They thought Gonzalez made some really nice plays. Egbuka, though, 6 catches, 115 yards. And it was weird, too, John. I want to get your thoughts on this. I thought when the Patriots played man coverage, there wasn't a lot the Bucs were able to do outside of Egbuka. But then they went through stretches in this game where they played a lot of zone, and the Bucs went right down the field against their zone. Like that touchdown, the 92-yard touchdown drive in the third quarter, the Bucs had ton of zone, ton of soft zone, and the Bucs just went right down the field and scored. I didn't really understand why they were playing so much zone at certain point, and they did in the first half a little bit too. But at certain point, like when they played man, again, the Bucs had some success, but it felt like when they played zone, Baker was carving them up. I thought they played a little bit too much zone in this game.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think that they're in a tough spot because I think Carlton Davis is at his best as a squat cover 2 corner where he can funnel flat and carry routes vertically. Christian Gonzalez has proven that he's just as effective in any coverage scheme, but he's really effective as a man-to-man cover corner. And I think that they're in a little bit of a conundrum in that regard where they want to play as much man as they can possibly get away with, but they also want to blend and play more zone. And what I'd like to see them do more is blend coverages and play more split coverages, split field coverages where you're playing either man at one level and zone at another, or playing half man, half zone and splitting the field down the middle. I want to see them do more of that because I think, and they are doing that. They have blended coverages a bunch this season, but I think part of the reason that they mix and match so much coverage-wise is because Davis isn't really a pure man-to-man cover corner. He can do it, but it's matchup dependent, whereas Gonzalez can pretty much match up against anybody, whether they're an X, a Z, or an F. It doesn't matter. So I think it's one of those things where you bring up a good point. At times this year, they've struggled in zone coverage, and I think they do situationally play it in certain parts of the field. They have clearly been better in man coverage, and I suspect that they will continue to play more man coverage because, again, that's worked more for them. But I'd still like to see them blend coverages some more.
And I would also add, I think Marcus Jones in the slot is a better fit as a man cover corner. So, but to your point, Davis, squad cover too.
But they did but let's not forget, and I think it's an important point to bring up. Jones struggled last week when Atlanta was able to compress and get in a stack of alignments and get Drake London free and matched up on Jones. He struggled in man coverage. So I'm sure part of the reason why they probably played as much zone as they did at various points today has to do with the fact that they didn't want to end up in that situation again.
Yeah, right. You don't want Egbuka on Marcus Jones. So that's a good point there, too. I also thought, too, Jack Gibbons had a really good game today. And
he did. Funny. I think he's been good for him all year.
He was a Vrabel guy in Tennessee. They brought him in, and it was, Spillane was the headliner, and then you think, all right, Tavai's probably the second guy. Then they gave Christian Ellis more money than I thought they were going to. So Gibbons is really the fourth guy in this offseason, like as part of the group. And I think he's been their second best linebacker this year. I think Ellis has been hot and cold. He's been benched at times earlier in the year. Obviously, he was out today with injury. And Tavai hasn't really made an impact at all. I mean, they started this game in base defense with 3 linebackers. Tavai was in there for a little bit. And then after that, he didn't play that much. Gibbons, 10 tackles. He had a tackle for loss. He had a pass breakup. He's got really good sideline to sideline speed, which has been impressive to watch. We talked about team speed earlier. So I thought him filling in or stepping up in his role, I thought he had a really good game as well.
Yeah, the only other concern I had was it did get nicked up today, and it is a short turnaround to play the Jets on Thursday night at home. Barmore left this game at one point. Trayvon Henderson left this game at one point. A couple of other guys, I'm drawing a blank as to who else left this game at one point. But they
briefly left the game. I think he might have got something in his eyes on that injury.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's any sort of long-term, but he did leave briefly as well.
And Marcus Jones as well.
Yeah.
So
on the punt return, right. Yes.
Yeah.
And then you wonder Thursday night, is Kayshon Boutte going to be ready to go? Will Christian Ellis be ready to go? Or did they sit them down today with the idea of also sitting them down Thursday and they'll just come back in a couple weeks? Like that's going to
because you get the mini bye after the game, and that probably gives Boutte and Ellis at least, maybe even Stevenson, time to get healthy and get back.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? You have that the 10-day layoff between the end of the Thursday night game and their next game after that. And that's the thing with this team, right? It's going to come down to health and depth in large part because you have that Jets Thursday night game, then you go on the road to Cincinnati, then you have the Giants on Monday Night Football, then your actual bye week before you have the 4 games to close out the year. But those 4 games, first 2 are Buffalo and Baltimore. So you got to be healthy going into those. You got to be playing well because those games could, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but those games could have the number 1 seed on the line, some of those head-to-head matchups. So I think you want to be healthy going into that. And we've talked about it. The biggest concern on this roster as a whole is depth, right? They have a lot of quality starters, and they've mostly been healthy this year. Now they're starting to get banged up a little. Is the depth, the depth to me is the biggest concern roster-wise, the second half of the season.
Which brings me to the trade deadline. They didn't do anything. I understand why they didn't. I think that it was a seller's market. I think a lot of the teams that were selling overvalued the players they had. They wanted high-end compensation. The Patriots weren't willing to pay it. And I know some Patriot fans will disagree with me on this, and I know a lot of people didn't agree with this assertion during the week. But given where they are right now, John, you want to make sure that whatever you're building here is sustainable. We've seen how it can quickly go sideways. Look at the Washington Commanders, right? And the Commanders this offseason really went in on adding veterans and fortifying the roster that way. It has not worked out. And I think in the case of the Patriots, I think they legitimately did want to fortify defensive end, running back, maybe add another defensive back. I think they did want to add depth to their roster. I think ultimately they decided not to because the asking price was so high. But is it something, because you can't now, if you want to upgrade the roster, it's going to be with guys off the street. You're not going to be able to bring in a guy via trade. Is that concerning to you that the depth is starting to show up a little bit here now where they're going to need those depth guys and they may not have enough?
Yeah, to me, the trade deadline was not about, for the Patriots, trading 2 1s for Sauce Gardner. That's not something they're going to do. But, Dallas traded a 7th-round pick and got Logan Wilson from the Bengals, who's a linebacker that's had 100 tackles in each of the past 4 years. You put him next to Spillane, and you have a legit piece next to Spillane. And I know Gibbons played well today. I just talked about it. But I think Wilson's a much more proven player. And if, God forbid, something happens to Spillane, you do have a legit guy there. Because, that's the thing with this roster. Right? They've survived the Kayshon Boutte injury at receiver. But if they have another receiver injury, then things start to get really thin. Or if they have a linebacker injury, or if they have 2 tight ends, and one of them's a lot better than the other. And so if they have a tight end injury, then there's a problem there. Their offensive line, too, outside Jared Wilson has missed 1 game, and other than that, those guys have played together all year. That hasn't been the case for the last few years. Hopefully it stays that way, but you suffer an O-line injury. That's the thing. And even depth, I would say, we look at defensive tackle, John, as a strength. But Barmore missed most of last year, and he got banged up today. Milton Williams played less than 50% of the snaps last year, and they're trying to stretch him out to play all year. And then Tonga's been really good, but, it's still kind of early in his time with the Patriots as far as making an impact. That is maybe a little bit thinner of a position than it seems on the surface. We know.
I think the only thing is I do think they like what they have behind those guys, though.
And I get that.
They like Farmer.
Yeah.
That they like what they have there. I think that they're deeper than we probably think.
It's just a lot of unproven commodities, I think, is what my concern is there. I mean, even trading away Kyle Duggar. Like, look, Duggar wasn't playing. I mean, he was only playing when Jalen Hawkins was out. But now it's like, okay, you have a rookie in Craig Woodson, and you have Jalen Hawkins, who they played pretty well this year. But beyond that, like, if there's an injury at safety, you start to get worried. So that's where, again, it's just where they're at in their rebuild, right? They're not a deep team right now, and it's going to take another offseason, maybe two, before they become a truly top to bottom deep roster.
Yeah, and it's hard to do nowadays. Depth is hard to acquire in football at any level. Realistically speaking, it's hard to build a deep roster.
Good depth, like 4 or 5. I mean, seriously, like top to bottom at all position groups, maybe it's 4 or 5 teams you can look at and say have great depth.
Yeah, and it's hard to acquire because you're constantly moving money around. Your roster's being shuffled. There's too many moving parts, and I think that makes it hard to put together a deep roster nowadays. And really, your depth has to be your young players, your first and second year players. They have to take meaningful steps in their development throughout the course of the season so that they can end up becoming quality depth pieces. And if they don't do that, then that affects your depth as well. But I do think, John, and I think it's an important point, I think a lot of people were frustrated that they didn't do anything, but I don't think it's from a lack of effort. I think they genuinely did want to make a deal and try to fortify one of these areas. I just think that ultimately the asking price was too high, and they didn't want to go there. And I saw some people were saying, yeah, but why would you want to give up one of those 6-rounders? I don't think teams were asking for 6-rounders. If they were, for example, Tennessee apparently wasn't going to be trading with the Patriots per order of the owner, but if Tony Pollard, let's say, was a player that you wanted to acquire, and it sounds like they inquired about him, you're not getting him for a 6-round pick. You're going to get him for ideally, if you're Tennessee, a late day 2 pick. They're not going to take a day 3 pick for a player like that.
Yeah, and I think that's where, again, it comes down to I don't think anybody wanted them to get Sauce Gardner or Quinnen Williams and deal away first and second.
Yeah.
I just think you missed an opportunity to add again, I just use Logan Wilson as an example, but I think you missed an opportunity to add some depth pieces to your roster, which would have taken day 3 picks, and you'd feel better about the depth going forward.
No, I agree. I think Logan Wilson is a good example. He ends up going to Dallas for a 6-round pick. That would have been a guy who's a good football player, a guy who was fundamentally sound. He would have improved your run defense even more. Not that it needs that much improvement. But as you mentioned, now your depth guys can focus on being depth guys and special teamers and not have to play a bunch of defensive snaps as well. Lauren checks back in. John, you said what I thought. Pat's let a lot of guys on defense walk away and traded away some players like Duggar and Keon White. I'm curious how they're going to build the defensive roster in the offseason.
It's interesting because I still think, like, when we look at the draft, and I look at tight end and offensive line as like their biggest needs going into the offseason, but they do have a real needed edge. They have to fortify linebacker as well. So the jury's still out. I want to see how the rest of the season unfolds, but like tight end, I think is going to be a glaring need. I think they're going to need another offensive tackle depending on the development of Marcus Bryant. If they like him to take over for Morgan Moses eventually, I don't know. They need a center. They still don't have that. So and there's still a really good receiver away, I think, too, in that group. So as much as we want to focus defensively, and as great as Mays played, they still have some pretty big offensive needs in the offseason.
Well, I think when you take a look at that draft class next year, the 26th class, when you take an early glance at that group, defensive line edge is going to be a strength of that class, so that they can certainly fortify their front seven through the draft. Now it becomes a question of, okay, offensive tackle is also going to be a strength, although given the way things are going right now and where they're going to be picking, I'm not sure that one of those elite level guys, unless they slip up between now and then and don't have a great pre-draft process, I don't think one of the top 4 or 5 guys is going to potentially fall to them. But they'll be in position where they can get a quality offensive tackle or a quality defensive end edge guy that they can bring in to fortify that front. And you mentioned receiver. I mean, look, it's receiver is a position where there's plenty of guys out there, and there are some surefire no-brainer guys, but there's also a lot of guys that teams tend to whiff on and miss on, that becomes the other part of it. Mike Vrabel is not immune to that, by the way. I mean, they missed on Traylon Burks in Tennessee after they traded A.J. Brown. So his receiver track record isn't exactly better than Mayo's or Belichick's right now. So that remains to be seen. But, yeah, the depth, I think, is going to be a big part of it moving forward this season. Their depth is being tested now, and it could become a deciding factor as to whether or not this team can actually contend moving forward. We'll see. All right, John, final thoughts here before we wrap it up. Again, Patriots beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 28-23. They are now 8-2 on the season.
Yeah, arguably the best win of the season with that Buffalo game as well. And wasn't perfect, but they executed in some key moments when they needed to. They got the big defensive stop late in the game, had explosive plays from their rookie class, which was fun. And I'm going to say the same thing now, John, that I said in the post-game show after the Bills win. Can you now build on it and beat teams you should beat, right? The Jets, the Bengals, the Giants going for – so you had a great win on the road, arguably your biggest win of the year. You've won 7 games in a row, whatever it is. Can you now build on that and be a team that's going to contend for that number 1 seed in the AFC?
I couldn't agree with you more, John, and I think that's the true litmus test. It's these next 3 weeks. You're the better team. These are teams you should beat. You got to come out of this stretch 3-0. And it's going to be hard. I wouldn't be surprised if they got off to a slow start on Thursday night. Coming off a short week to come back and play. The Jets are going to do it too. So they're not immune to that part of it either. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a slow start on Thursday. But to your point, bigger picture, you then go to Cincinnati the following Sunday. Then you host the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. You have got to come out of that stretch 3-0. You've got to win those 3 games before you go into your bye week. I think if they do that, they'll be in really good shape. But again, when you look at the AFC, Buffalo, not who we thought they were going to be. Baltimore, not who we thought they were going to be. Cincinnati, not who we thought they were going to be because they're missing Burrow. Kansas City, very up and down. They've looked like the best team in the league at times, and other times they've looked very pedestrian. The AFC is wide open. It's there for the taking. And don't give me Denver and Indianapolis. I think the Patriots are just as good, if not better, than those 2 teams. I think they match up with those 2 teams pretty well. They can win this conference and potentially make a deep playoff run. I'm not going to say Super Bowl quite yet, but I do think they're in a really good spot, especially after today, provided they stay healthy. And that's always the key with any team. Provided they stay healthy, they should be in pretty good shape to make a playoff run here, depending on where they finish. All right, well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Patriots Pulse postgame show. For WEI's John Lyons, I'm John Serenitas. We will be back with you on Thursday night after the Patriots-Jets game. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Peace.